leave you to get really excited, very enthusiastic. Open your ears and your hearts to the very wonderful Jeremy Knight.
Ladies and gentlemen, elves and pixies, and all magical creatures, thank you for having me. The thing about blogging is it's been around forever, right? And I think that a lot of things are around forever. Some people end up saying, well, it's probably dead, right? It's been around forever. But even some old ogres have still got life in them yet. So I'm here to try and convince you that blogging is still worthwhile, and if you agree with me, how to best do it. Please welcome to the stage Annie. She is the marketing manager of Crave Tech here in Cambridge. I know you know her, all of you, and this is how she feels about blogging today. She's not really that convinced anymore. It takes a lot of time. She's not sure it's working for the company anymore. People are writing fewer posts, right? And it's all about social media today. Blogs simply get lost in the ether, don't they? I mean, there's so much out there. Why in the world would you do it? Please meet Professor Joe. He looks surprisingly different with hair on, doesn't he, Joe? There he is in all his glory, and Joe happens to have a mate in Chicago called Andy, who has been running research from about 1,400 bloggers, B2B bloggers in the main, sorry, B2C people, around the world. And Joe wanted me to leverage some of Andy's research to put some things in perspective, or to try at the very least. I think I'm beginning to sound like the man Snow on BBC Two. Here we have an election, and over here we've got a lot of bloggers. In 2014, the average post took about 2.5 hours. Today, that's 3.3 hours. That's quite a shift. That's 39% more than in 2014. That is to say, more time spent blogging for those people who do. There's been quite a significant drop in the amount of time, or less than an hour, spent writing blogs. At the same time, quite a considerable rise in blogs that are taking more than 6 hours to write. 1 in 20 posts was written in more than 6 hours in 2014. That number's now 1 in 8. Not surprisingly, given that people are spending longer, they're writing longer posts. And longer posts correlate in the main with better results. It's a bit duh. You would imagine so. But that's not always the case either. So it's still the #1 way to get organic traffic. Think about it. When you build your site, you're unlikely to carry on building page after page after page on your products or your service. It doesn't make any sense. With a blog, you can continue to write posts, which are individual pages, which means your site grows. As a consequence, you're more likely to get organic traffic. It stands to reason. And each post is still an opportunity to get found and shared. And the more relevant your posts are to your target audience, and the more you post, the more your site and your traffic is going to grow. Moving on. So bloggers that are B2B marketers with blogs, looking at some of the evidence, if you like, gathered from some institutions out there, get 67% more leads than those that don't, according to Forrester. Marketers prioritizing blogging are 13 times more likely to enjoy a positive ROI, according to HubSpot. By 2020, apparently, according to Gartner, 85% of our relationships will take place online without ever interacting directly with a human. Everybody familiar with the Content Marketing Institute? They run research every year, and this was actually from North America, but 52% that blogging is still their most critical content marketing tactic. It might not be fashionable anymore, and it sure ain't this cool. But it's still the best way to grow your website and your website traffic. And one little tip, if you like, on blogging, especially if you're feeling fatigued by it, is remember this. They ask, you answer. As long as you know what your customers and your prospects are interested in, answering their questions is a really good way to think about blogging. In fact, anybody heard of Marcus Sheridan in the room? He's a speaker. He's written a book called that, They Ask You Answer. And it's well worth a read. So if you're looking for a shot in the arm as to how you can use content today, especially in the context of blogging, I highly recommend that book. Nearly 1,400 bloggers who are responding to this survey, over the last 4 years, 55% say that they get positive results from blogging. That's quite a lot. So if 50% are getting good results from blogging, which camp should you be in? A reduction in the number of people who are blogging more than daily or daily. So a while back, if we were to wind that back, as you can with this research, you would see that there were many more people doing that. And there's a definite drop-off in the number of people who are writing lots and lots of posts. In fact, the biggest rise is in several per month, not even in every week. But you'll see that there's a correlation between that and people writing longer posts in more depth. And that also relates to the posts that get better results. You'd kind of expect that, really. It's not a revelation in and of itself, but in the context of what's going on here, this debate, if you like, around quality versus frequency is far from put to bed. But the thing to remember is those that are in the frequency camp tend to be much more savvy about the need to promote their posts. So as a rule, if you take the amount of time you spend blogging, you should be spending an equal amount of time promoting those posts. And that's what really will make a difference with blogging. With social, whilst it can be fantastic, I think it's pretty well established now that you're building your business to an extent on rented ground. They could change the rules. Oh, hang on, they already did. I mean, really, now, if you want to leverage social to any great degree, you're going to need to pay to play to a certain extent. But when you post new articles on your own site, you're building your online footprint, you're creating more opportunities to get found, and you're earning, potentially, more links back to your site. All good stuff, and it's on your land. So you're actually building a digital asset for your business that you own, which has got to be good, right? So everyone uses social to promote. It's the most obvious thing to do, but it's the least effective way of promoting your posts. If you really want to look at how you promote your posts and where you could get the biggest returns, then thinking about how you use paid social and thinking about how you use influencer outreach are by far the two most impactful ways of promoting those posts. Neither of which are particularly easy to get right, but that's not to say you can't. You absolutely can. So that's where I'd focus the attention. Bottom line, as long as we're responding to the interests, the fears, and the aspirations of our buyer personas, then blogging can be very successful for us as long as we remember to promote our blogs. Addie hasn't gone away, she's in the background and she's saying, but they still get lost in the ether, right? Well, just remember this. Anybody who's creating anything that's a mile wide and only an inch deep isn't even found in the first place. When the majority of us are in B2B, we need to be creating content that's an inch wide and a mile deep. And frankly, we shouldn't care too much about the fact that an awful lot of people bounce off it and don't care about it. We should really mean something to the people for whom we do business. And that's where you need to position blogging. Actually, as it turns out, if we create lots of pages or posts on subject areas that are periphery to our business or not particularly tied into what we do, we confuse the search engines and we make it harder to rank for the terms that matter and to get found by people who are actually looking for what we do. So remain on topic is the thing there. So I convinced Annie. She says, all right, go for it. Come on, if it's worth doing, it must be worth doing well. Well, yes. So I didn't even give this guy a name. I thought you'd be fatigued by that. But he wrote that 10 insights for creating insanely successful blog posts. Obviously a professional. I mentioned buyer personas earlier. Does everybody here develop their buyer personas? Is that? Yeah. But just to say that all things should derive from them. You're on the right path if that's what you're doing. Also, considering your posts in the context of their buyer's journey is a really important thing to do, in my opinion. So you're not really going to be blogging that much around the decision stage, but you need to be thinking about the awareness stage and the consideration stage in the context of your blog. And that brings up an important point, which is planning. So planning really matters. Why is it that you are writing this post? Why not someone else in the company? Why not outsourced? Why are you? Who are you writing it for? Which persona? Which stage of the buying cycle are they? Is this post in support of a campaign, a pillar page? When will it be written? When's it going to be scheduled and published? Who's going to do that? Create a content calendar. Make sure that your posts fit into that and make sure that they relate to your wider content and your posts will have more meaning. Start with a headline. Don't try and perfect the headline. What you need to do is start with a working title. Keep it under about 65 characters, including pixels, but be aware of this. It's not actually to do with the number of characters. It's to do with a pixel width. It's 600 pixels, and you've got a post that's written in capital letters, you'll get fewer characters in. If you've got a post that's got lots of W's in, you're not going to get as many characters as you would if you had lots of lowercase i's. That's not particularly scientific, but now you know. Who knew? So keywords still matter. They are not the be-all and end-all that they were, but it's still a very important thing to consider those keywords. When people tell you it's important to get the keywords up as close to the front of the beginning of the title as possible, honestly, if you test that, it still matters. It still helps. Make it engaging. Use interesting adjectives. Insanely successful. Trusted, painful, credible, essential. And focus on the benefits. How to find the best PPC agency for your retail campaign. Genie, what? Keywords still matter. I've mentioned it before. In the post title, in the body copy. Don't try and do it more than 2 or 3 times. Simply will be seen as stuffing, but do get it in there. Into the meta descriptor. That's not going to help you rank, but it is going to help convince people to convert on your listing in the SERPs. So it's really important. You might have noticed that Google bolds the keyword as well. And get it into the image alt tag. The importance of subheads. Subheads should be considered in the same way as titles. One of the key values they have is they break up your copy. Don't write long paragraphs when you're blogging. Write short paragraphs. Break your copy up. Subheads are a fantastic way of helping people scan, and that's what they want to do. They scan before they decide whether or not your post is worth reading. So creating subheads creates almost a roadmap for them to understand whether or not this post is valuable to them within 10 seconds. And a lot of them will bounce at that point. The extraordinary thing is the number of people who will share a post without even reading it because they want to build their social savvy currency. But, you know, what can I say to that? They're an opportunity for secondary keywords. Ultimately, they can, in subheads that is, they can enhance traction with your posts. Perfect your intro, having done all of these other things. So relate the relevance early. If someone's read your title, they've scanned, they've seen your subheads, they may read your opening paragraph. If you haven't got them then, they are gone. Statistically proven. So if there's one piece of your post, and don't try and perfect it from the get-go, but it should be the last thing you do, probably. Come back to that open paragraph. Use the keyword in that opening paragraph because your post may well live or die on that. Sorry for the slide, although I'm a dad, so I'm secretly really pleased with myself that I got bullets and numbers into a slide with James Bond. But this is the same deal. Keep your headlines, your subheads, and your bullets below around 65 characters, including spaces. The human brain can read that amount of content really quickly. it comes back to scanning. And it also comes back to creating more space. And the more white space there is in your blog, the more readable it appears, the more likely it is to get read. It's easier to keep readers engaged, and it's good for scanners. I'm just going to say pillar pages and topic clusters. If you didn't see it before, go and find out what those things mean, because it creates a whole new world of strategy behind your blogging and how internal links can matter, and they do. Don't be afraid of links out to high authority content, not to your competitors, obviously, but they can also help you. And lastly, those links back to your site. That's partially why you're doing this, is to earn those links back and increase your authority. Images really matter. Actually, if you look at the statistics, there's quite a considerable increase in the number of people who are using more than one image or infographics in posts. It's not different, really, is it, to old school magazine or newspaper publishing? There's a reason why they put lots of images in, use big headlines, all the rest of it. Just because it's online doesn't make it different. Use them. Remember, they break up the text. Social media posts with an image in apparently get 9 times more tweets. I don't know where they got that statistic from, but I found it, so I used it. It pays to be human. So avoid corporate speak. Oh, please. No jargon, no platitudes, but do use your industry terminology. Don't think, oh, I can't use that word because it's people aren't going to understand something. If that's what is used in the industry, use it. Don't do what I'm doing, which is tell the reader what to do. I'm going to tell you all what to do about blogging, so ignore me. But take a more advisory tone. Really what you want to do is avoid being preachy. And let your personality shine through. It's very difficult for very shy people like me to do that, but it's important, if you can, to inject your individual style into what you're doing. So you have to avoid vanilla. Vanilla is the devil in the context of online content. So ban it. Do not paint your houses in it. Have an opinion. Challenge misconceptions. Don't be boring. Thank you.